The mountain air had that crisp bite to it that I remembered from childhood summers. I stood on the deck of Grandpa's cabin, looking out at the pine trees that stretched down the slope toward the valley. 20 years of memories lived in this place, 20 years of learning to fish in the creek, of building forts in the woods, of sitting on this exact deck while Grandpa taught me about property values and investment strategies. Emma, we need to talk. Mom's voice came from behind me, and I could already hear the pleading tone that meant she wanted something. I turned to see her standing in the doorway, Dad beside her with that expression he always wore when he'd already agreed to whatever Mom wanted. Behind them, my sister Sarah leaned against the railing, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the wood. "What's this about?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. Mom stepped forward, reaching for my hands. "Sweetie, you know how much we all loved Grandpa. And you know how much this cabin meant to him." "It means a lot to me too," I said carefully. "Of course it does." Dad cleared his throat. "But Sarah and Michael have the twins now. They need a place where they can make family memories. You're so busy with work, you barely have time to visit anymore." I had visited 3 times this year. Sarah hadn't been here since Grandpa's funeral 4 years ago. "Grandpa left the cabin to me," I said quietly. Sarah pushed off the railing. "God, Emma, do you have to be so selfish? My kids are 7 years old. They should be running around in these woods, learning to fish, having real childhood experiences. What are you going to do with it? Show up twice a year and sit here alone?" "Sarah," I started. "No, let me finish." She crossed her arms. "You have your little condo in the city. You have your job. You don't have a family. Mason and Madison need this. They need space to grow, to explore, to build memories with their cousins and grandparents." Mom's eyes were getting misty. "Please, Emma, think about the children." I looked at my father, but he just nodded. "Your sister makes a good point. It would be better used by a family." The irony wasn't lost on me. I had spent the last 8 years building my family's legacy, just not in the way they understood. While they thought I worked a simple corporate job at a hospitality company, I had quietly built something much larger. But they'd never asked about my work. They'd never asked about anything beyond whether I was dating anyone. "I need to think about it," I said. Sarah's face hardened. "Think about it, Emma? We're talking about your niece and nephew. What's there to think about?" I said. "I need time." "How much time?" Mom asked. "Sarah and Michael found a realtor who specializes in mountain properties. She could come look at it this week, give us an idea of what modifications might be needed for the kids." "You already called a realtor." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "We're just being practical," Dad said. "If you agree to let Sarah have it, we want to move quickly before the summer season starts." I looked around at my family. Mom with her trembling lip, Dad with his stern expression, Sarah with her entitled glare. None of them had asked what I wanted. None of them had considered that Grandpa left this cabin to me for a reason. "Fine," I said. "Bring the realtor. I'll be here Thursday." Mom's face lit up. "Oh, Emma, thank you. You're doing such a wonderful thing." Sarah was already on her phone. "I'm texting Michelle now. She'll be so excited." I walked back inside the cabin, past the stone fireplace where Grandpa and I used to play chess, past the kitchen where he taught me to make his famous blueberry pancakes. In his study, I ran my fingers along the spines of his books on real estate development, property management, and investment strategies. "You taught me well," I whispered to his memory. Time to put those lessons to use. Thursday came with clear skies and warm sunshine. I arrived at the cabin early, parking my modest Honda Civic at the far end of the gravel lot. Through the trees, I could see other cabins dotting the mountainside, part of what had once been a thriving resort community before it fell into private ownership decades ago. Mom's Mercedes pulled up at exactly 10 o'clock, followed by Sarah's Range Rover and a silver Lexus I didn't recognize. The realtor, presumably. "Emma?" Mom hurried over, pulling me into a hug. "Thank you so much for doing this. You have no idea what it means to Sarah." Sarah emerged from her SUV carrying a large binder. "Michelle brought comparables from other mountain properties. We can talk about whether we want to add a second bathroom, maybe expand the deck. Maybe we should tour the property first," I suggested. The realtor, a blonde woman in her 50s wearing expensive hiking boots, extended her hand. "Michelle Prescott. I've been selling mountain properties for 20 years. This is a gorgeous piece of land." "It is," I agreed. We started walking, Michelle pointing out various features. The cabin itself is solid, about 1,800 square feet, needs some updating, but the bones are good. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. The real value is in the location and the land. Sarah was already planning. We'd knock out this wall between the kitchen and living room. Create an open concept. Much better for entertaining. I said nothing, just walked the perimeter I'd walked hundreds of times before. Michelle kept up a running commentary about property values, seasonal rental potential, and development opportunities. Now, if you were willing to subdivide the lot, Michelle said, you could potentially. No subdividing, I said firmly. Of course not, Mom interjected quickly. This is for Sarah's family. We want to keep it intact. We walked down toward the tree line where Grandpa's property bordered the rest of the resort land. Michelle paused, consulting her phone. Interesting, she said. According to the county records, this lot is actually part of a larger parcel, 17.3 acres total. Grandpa owned all of it, I confirmed. Sarah's eyes widened. 17 acres. Emma, you could sell off some of this land. You'd make a fortune, and we'd still have plenty of space for the cabin. I'm not selling the land, but you're giving us the cabin, Sarah said. What do you need 17 acres for? I stopped walking and turned to face them. I never said I was giving you the cabin. Mom's face fell. But you said. I said I'd think about it. I said the realtor could come look. I never agreed to give it to Sarah. Emma, please, Mom's voice cracked. Don't be like this. Think about Mason and Madison. They deserve to have what you had growing up. What I had growing up, I said slowly, was a grandfather who spent every summer teaching me about hard work, about building something meaningful, about making strategic decisions. Did you know he bought this cabin for $18,000 in 1972? Dad frowned. What does that have to do with anything? He taught me to see potential, to understand value, to think long term. I looked at Sarah. When was the last time you were here? Before Grandpa died. Sarah's jaw tightened. I was busy. I had a life. You came for Christmas 2019. For 3 hours. Grandpa asked about your job, your kids, your husband. You spent the whole time on your phone. That's not fair. I was here every chance I got. Spring breaks, long weekends, summer vacations. Grandpa and I would drive around this mountain, and he'd point out properties, talk about their history, explain why certain locations were valuable. Michelle was watching with professional interest. Mom looked like she might cry again. He left this cabin to me, because he knew I understood what it meant. Not just as a family vacation spot, but as part of something bigger. Bigger how? Dad asked. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. Michelle, you mentioned this property is part of a larger parcel. What else is included in that parcel? According to county records. Michelle checked her phone again, scrolling through data. Her eyebrows rose. Looks like it extends northwest to include. Oh my. What? Sarah demanded. This parcel appears to connect to the old Silverwood Resort properties. Those have been tied up in corporate ownership for years. Michelle looked at me with new interest. The records show a recent transfer of the entire resort complex. Who bought it? I smiled. I did. The silence that followed was profound. Mom actually took a step back. Sarah's binder slipped from her hands, papers scattering across the pine needles. What? Dad's voice was barely audible. 18 months ago, I purchased the Silverwood Mountain Resort, all 19 luxury cabins, the main lodge, the ski facilities, the restaurant, the conference center, and 473 acres of mountain property. Michelle's professional composure cracked. You're the buyer? The one who outbid the Denver Investment Group. That was me. Sarah found her voice. That's impossible. You work in hospitality. You're a middle manager or something. You can't afford. I'm the CEO of Summit Hospitality Group, I said calmly. We own and operate 12 mountain resort properties across Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming. Silverwood is our flagship location. Mom sat down heavily on a nearby bench. CEO. For the past 6 years. Before that, I was VP of Acquisitions. Before that, Director of Property Development. I started as an analyst right out of college, using everything Grandpa taught me. Dad was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. But you drive a Honda. You live in a condo. A condo I own outright, in a building I have a 40% stake in. And I drive a Honda, because it's reliable, and I don't need to prove anything with a car. Michelle had recovered enough to pull up something on her tablet. Summit Hospitality Group, privately held, estimated annual revenue of $87 million, portfolio value of approximately $240 million, $263 million, as of last quarter, I corrected. We had a good ski season. Sarah's face had gone pale. You own all of this. The whole resort? I do. Grandpa's cabin sits on what's now the northeastern boundary of the resort property. I've been planning to integrate it into our trail system, maybe use it as a private retreat for VIP guests. But, Mom's voice was small. Why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you? At Christmas when Sarah spent dinner talking about her kitchen renovation. At Dad's birthday when you spent an hour complaining about my lack of a husband. At Grandpa's funeral when you were all discussing how to divide his assets. That's not fair, Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. You know what's not fair. Being treated like a failure because I focused on building something instead of performing success. You see Michelle's Lexus and think she's doing well. You see my Honda and think I'm struggling. You never once asked about my actual life. Michelle cleared her throat awkwardly. I should probably go. Actually, I said I'd like you to stay. Professional question. What would you estimate the rental value of Grandpa's cabin to be if it were part of a luxury resort property? Michelle understood immediately. In its current condition, maybe $1,200 per night during peak season. With renovations to bring it up to resort standards, $2,500 to $3,000. Sarah made a small sound of distress. And if a family wanted to lease it long-term, say for the entire summer season, you'd be looking at $60,000 to $80,000 for June through August. I nodded. That's consistent with what my revenue management team estimated. Your revenue management team, Dad repeated faintly. We have 18 full-time employees at Silverwood now, plus seasonal staff. I've hired a new resort manager who starts next month. His background includes the Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons. He's very excited about our expansion plans. Mom stood up, her legs shaky. Emma, I don't understand. If you have all this, why didn't you just say so? Why let us think? Think what? That I was a failure. You all decided that on your own. I never lied to you. You never asked. But the cabin, Sarah said desperately. You can't just. I brought a moving truck. It's at the bottom of the mountain. I was going to start bringing furniture up. The temperature in my veins dropped 20 degrees. You brought a truck, today. Well, I thought once you saw how serious we were. You brought a moving truck to take possession of property you don't own without the owner's permission. Michelle winced. Emma, sweetie, she didn't mean anything by it, Mom said quickly. She's just excited about the kids having a place to. Stop, I held up my hand. Just stop. Sarah, you need to send that truck away. This is private property, and you're not moving anything anywhere. You can't be serious, Sarah said. After everything we've been through as a family, you're going to pull rank like this. Pull rank, Sarah. You showed up planning to move into a cabin you don't own. That was never promised to you, without even having a conversation about what I might want. What you want. You want to turn Grandpa's cabin into a hotel room for strangers. I want to build something meaningful, something that employs people, serves the community, and honors the lessons Grandpa taught me. He didn't leave me this cabin so I could hand it over to someone who couldn't be bothered to visit him while he was alive. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's face flushed red. How dare you? How dare I tell the truth? You came to see him 3 times in the last 5 years of his life. 3 times. I was here every month, sometimes twice a month. I sat with him when he was sick. I handled his medical bills. I made sure he had everything he needed. We didn't know he needed help, Mom protested. Because you didn't ask. Just like you didn't ask about my life, my career, or my plans. You assumed. And now you're upset that your assumptions were wrong. Dad finally spoke. What do you want from us, Emma? I want you to respect my decisions. I want you to understand that Grandpa left this cabin to me because he trusted me to do the right thing with it. And I want Sarah to send that truck away before I call the sheriff about trespassing. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. You've changed. You're not the sister I remember. You're right. I'm not a kid anymore, who goes along with whatever you want to keep the peace. I'm a business owner who makes hard decisions based on what's right, not what's easy. Michelle's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and looked at me. That's my office. They're asking about the Silverwood property. Apparently someone called asking if it's on the market. I looked at Sarah, who had the grace to look away. Tell them it's not for sale, I said. It's also not for lease to family members at this time. We have other plans. Emma, please, Mom said. Can't we talk about this? Find some compromise. The compromise is that Sarah's family can book one of the resort cabins like anyone else. We offer a 10% family discount. A 10% discount. Sarah's voice was shrill. For family. That's more than we offer most people. Our occupancy rate is 83%. We don't need to discount. Michelle was openly staring now. 83%. That's exceptional for a mountain resort. We focus on quality and service. Our reviews are consistently 4.8 stars or higher. We're selective about our guests because we want to maintain our reputation. The implication wasn't subtle. Sarah caught it immediately. I don't believe this, she said. You're actually going to keep us out. Your own family. I'm going to treat you the way I treat everyone else. You're welcome to book a cabin through our reservation system. Peak season rates are $2,500 to $4,000 per night depending on the cabin size and amenities. We require a 50% deposit and have a strict cancellation policy. $4,000 a night. Dad sounded like he was choking. Our cabins sleep 8 to 12 people comfortably. They include full kitchens, private hot tubs, concierge service, and access to all resort amenities. It's competitive with other luxury mountain resorts in Colorado. Luxury, Sarah laughed, but it sounded desperate. This place needs new carpet, and the bathroom tiles are from the 80s. Grandpa's cabin will be renovated extensively. We're adding a master suite, upgrading all the bathrooms, installing a commercial-grade kitchen, and rebuilding the deck with composite materials. The work starts in 3 weeks. Mom looked like she might faint. You're going to change everything. I'm going to improve it while maintaining the character Grandpa loved. The stone fireplace stays. The built-in bookshelves stay. The view from the deck stays. But yes, it will be updated to meet our resort standards. And then you'll rent it to strangers, Sarah said bitterly. I'll rent it to guests who appreciate quality and are willing to pay for it, just like the other 18 cabins. Michelle's phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen and her eyes widened. I need to take this. Excuse me. She stepped away, her voice rising in what sounded like excitement. When she returned, her professional mask was back in place, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. That was the broker who represents the Denver investment group that tried to buy Silverwood, she said. They're asking if I have any connection to the new owner. They want to make an offer. Tell them no. They haven't stated their price yet. It doesn't matter. Silverwood isn't for sale. Michelle nodded slowly. I understand. Can I ask what your long-term plans are? For the resort, year 1 is about establishing operations and building our reputation. Year 2, we're adding a spa facility and expanding the conference center. Year 3, we're looking at additional land acquisition to extend our trail system and possibly add a small golf course. A golf course, Dad said. Do you have any idea what that costs? Approximately $4 to $6 million for a 9-hole mountain course, depending on terrain and design. We've already secured preliminary approval from the county and have 3 different design firms bidding on the project. Sarah sat down on the bench next to Mom, her fight draining away. This is really happening. You really own all of this. I do, and you're not going to let us have the cabin. No. Not even for the kids. Sarah, your kids are 7 years old. They'd be just as happy camping in the backyard. This isn't about what they need. It's about what you want. She didn't argue. Michelle checked her watch. I should go. Emma, if you ever need a realtor for property acquisitions in this area, I'd love to work with you. I'll keep that in mind. We have someone we usually work with, but the market can always use good professionals. After Michelle left, the four of us stood in uncomfortable silence. A pair of hikers passed by on the trail, waving cheerfully. I waved back, aware that they were likely guests at the resort. What now? Mom finally asked. Now you decide how you want to move forward, I said. You can accept that I'm successful, that I've built something meaningful, and that I'm going to make my own decisions about my property. Or you can keep seeing me as the daughter who isn't living up to your expectations. We never said you weren't living up to expectations, Dad protested. You didn't have to say it. It was in every conversation we had. Sarah's doing so well with her kids. Sarah's husband got another promotion. Sarah's renovating her kitchen. What about Emma? Oh, she's still working at that hospitality company. We thought you were happy, Mom said softly. I am happy. I'm very happy. I built a company I'm proud of. I employ good people. I provide excellent service. I make enough money to live comfortably and invest in my future. I just did it without needing your approval or recognition. Sarah stood up. I need to send the truck away. That would be wise. She pulled out her phone and walked a few steps away, her voice low as she made the call. Mom and Dad stood together, looking older than I remembered. Did Grandpa know? Dad asked. About your company. He knew everything. He was my first investor. When I had the idea for Summit Hospitality, he wrote me a check for $50,000 and told me to make him proud. $50,000, Mom gasped. Which I paid back with interest 3 years later. His investment stake is now worth about $2.4 million. It's in a trust that funds scholarships for hospitality management students. Dad's voice was rough. He never mentioned it. He kept my secrets, just like he taught me to do. He said the people who matter will see your success when it's real. The ones who don't matter will only see what they want to see. Sarah returned, her face blotchy. The truck is leaving. Thank you. Is there any chance? She started then stopped. Never mind. Say what you were going to say. Is there any chance we could visit? Not to stay, just to see what you've built. Maybe with the kids. I considered her carefully. The resort officially opens for summer season on June 1st. You're welcome to come for a tour. Bring Mason and Madison. Let them see what their great-grandfather's granddaughter built. We'd have to book a cabin if we wanted to stay. Yes, and pay full price. You'd pay the family rate, 10% off. She nodded slowly. Okay, that's fair, I guess. Sarah, I said, and waited until she met my eyes. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing this because it's my business, my property, and my decision. If you want to be part of my life, you need to respect that. I do, she said, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. I will. I just need time to adjust. Take all the time you need. We walked back toward the parking lot in silence. When we reached the cars, Mom turned to me one more time. Can we have dinner sometime? Just the family. Maybe we could talk about what you've been doing, what your plans are. I'd like that, I said, but it can't be about trying to change my mind about the cabin. It won't be, I promise. I just want to know my daughter better. After they left, I stood in the parking lot for a long time, looking up at Grandpa's cabin. My cabin now, soon to be renovated and integrated into the resort, but still holding all those memories of summers past and lessons learned. My phone rang. It was David Chen, my director of operations. Hey boss, he said, how did the family meeting go? About as expected. They had a realtor and a moving truck. He whistled. Seriously, seriously. But I set them straight. The cabin renovation can proceed as planned. Good. I have the contractor lined up for next month. Are you still thinking about the VIP retreat concept? Or do you want to add it to the regular rental inventory? I looked at the cabin one more time, remembering Grandpa teaching me to play chess by the fireplace, showing me how to read property surveys, explaining the importance of location and timing. Let's keep it as a VIP retreat, I said. Something special. Maybe use it for corporate team building, or family reunions for our best clients. I like that. Exclusive and high value. I'll work up some package options. Thanks, David. I'll be back in the office Monday. We can go over the summer staffing schedule. After I hung up, I walked back into the cabin one last time. In Grandpa's study, I opened the drawer where he kept his chess set. The pieces were still there, hand-carved walnut and maple, that he'd bought in Germany 40 years ago. I picked up the king, feeling its weight in my palm. Grandpa always said chess was like business. You needed to think several moves ahead. You needed to protect what mattered, and sometimes you needed to sacrifice what looked valuable to protect what actually was. I protected what mattered, Grandpa, I said to the empty room. And I'm building something you'd be proud of. I locked the cabin and drove down the mountain, past the resort sign, that would be replaced next month, with something more elegant, past the main lodge, where our new manager would soon be implementing upgraded service protocols, past the ski lifts that would run year-round, once we added summer activities. At the bottom of the mountain, I passed Sarah's moving truck, heading in the opposite direction. The driver looked confused. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. We'd love to take you to dinner next Saturday. No agenda, just family. Please. I thought about it for a moment, then replied, I'll bring the photos from Grandpa's last birthday. The one where he taught the twins to fish. Her response came quickly. We'd love that. Thank you, Emma. Maybe they would understand eventually. Maybe they wouldn't. But either way, I had built something real, something lasting, something that honored the man who believed in me. When I was just a kid with big dreams and a notebook full of property investment calculations, the mountain would still be here. The resort would thrive, and Grandpa's legacy would continue in ways he'd hoped for but probably never imagined. I merged onto the highway, heading back to Denver, already thinking about the Monday morning meeting, where we'd finalize plans for the spa expansion. There was so much work to do, so many decisions to make, so many opportunities ahead. But for now, I cranked up the radio in my reliable Honda Civic and smiled. Some things were worth more than anyone could measure in dollars, and some victories were sweetest when earned quietly, strategically, and completely on your own terms.